morning. Well, I'm greeting you from quarantine. In the last 7 days, all 4 members of my family have tested positive for COVID-19. We're not feeling great, but none of us have major symptoms, and we are very thankful for that. Yesterday, there wasn't much that I could do, and so Sarah and I binge watched the Netflix show or the series on the Atlanta Centennial Olympic Park bombing. And there's this scene in one of the later episodes that's completely fictitious, but really wonderful, with federal agents and a right-wing militia who have joined forces together to try to find the bomber. And they're out in the middle of the Nantahala wilderness, sitting around a campfire, passing around moonshine. And one of the militia guys asks who would bomb the Olympics, who would set a bomb in some place where they knew there would be families, kids in strollers, and this kind of thing. And the FBI agent, or one of the FBI agents, responds and says that he had been to Jesuit school growing up, and that he had to read St. Augustine, and that Augustine had, wrestling with that exact same question, why is there evil in the world, had come to the conclusion that there really isn't evil, in the same sense that there's no such thing as darkness. Darkness exists, but darkness is simply the absence of light, and evil is the absence of good. And what that means is that light is always so much more powerful than darkness, and good is always so much more powerful than evil, because they can easily overcome them simply because bringing light into darkness vanquishes the darkness. This week, as we get closer and closer to Christmas, we are reminded that the story of Christmas truly is the light coming into the world. As John says in the very beginning of his gospel, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not, cannot, will not ever overcome it. I'm reminded of 2018, when the soccer team in Thailand and their coach went exploring in a cave, and the water levels rose and they got trapped in there. You may remember they were stuck in there for over 2 weeks, but what was truly terrifying, I think, to me, is that for the first 8 days, they had no contact with the outside world. They had no way of knowing if anybody knew where they were, if anybody was coming to get them, to try to rescue them. They were just trapped in this cave, their flashlights all burned out, and they were completely in darkness, without any food. They were licking the walls to get water dripping off of the walls for water, and that's all they could do, and they were stuck in total darkness. And can you imagine when the Australian diver was the first one to reach them, when they saw that light coming up from underneath the water and then came up, and there is a diver, how amazing that must have been. All of a sudden, their completely dark world was filled with light. And although it was going to be another 5 or 6 days before they got out, how much hope they finally had at that time, and the sense in which that, in spite of the fact that it was going to be a long journey still to go, that they were now going to be rescued. And that, to me, is the Christmas story. That tiny baby coming into our world in a manger, in a stable, comes into the world. And yet he comes into the world bringing light and saying it's going to be okay. The light is now shining in the darkness. And it may be a wild ride from here on out. There may be ups and downs, but still it doesn't matter, because God is with you. God is with you, and the light shines in the darkness. And so on this Monday before Christmas, let us celebrate that the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. We can celebrate all of that because, of course, God is with us.